Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to talk about rooming houses in Victoria. Firstly, my name is Lee Wilson. I'm one of Kenekt's BDMs and manage Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, including our rooming houses. If you've been following the property market, you know we're facing a critical shortage of affordable rental housing. Vacancy rates are at historic lows, rents are soaring, and single-person households are rising rapidly. Victoria, and Melbourne in particular, sits right at the heart of this story. It's one of the fastest growing cities in Australia, with huge migration numbers, and yet housing supply simply hasn't kept up. Rooming houses provide a very practical, high-demand solution, and that's why we're seeing so much interest from investors right now. We have a video prepared by Terry Ryder from Hotspotting, one of the top researchers for the real estate market in Australia.
While many may think that property investment involves just freestanding houses or standard apartments, there's another popular class of residential investment which is delivering considerably better rental returns, and that is rooming houses. These are multi-occupancy properties which are owned by investors and provide affordable, safe, shared rental accommodation for tenants. What differs from traditional apartment or house living is the size and style of accommodation and the way it generates high yields. There are different types of rooming houses, but the common feature is that a tenant rents a private room and the other amenities are shared facilities in common areas. The modern form of rooming houses are a very different style of accommodation from the old boarding houses that existed decades ago or student accommodation lodges. And they attract a very different type of tenant, from key workers in the hospitality and health industries to young professionals and also retirees seeking an easy lock up and leave lifestyle. The typical rooming house, each tenant has a separate rental agreement, and for tenants it's a more affordable way to live as rents are generally lower than in standard single apartments. The benefits for investors can be substantial, including high yields and less risk, as multiple tenancies help cover the cost of owning the building, and there may also be taxation benefits. Rooming houses with the best returns are generally those built close to public transport, amenities and employment hubs such as hospitals. In Victoria, rooming houses represent a growing trend. Last year there were about 1,550 premises on the Victorian Rooming House Register, which represented a 10% increase from 2022. There are different categories of rooming houses, and in Victoria, for example, the main versions are Type 1A and Type 1B. Under the National Construction Code, a Class 1A rooming house is a single residential dwelling that is essentially designed for a family to live in, but is used as a rooming house. A Class 1B rooming house can be a boarding house, a guest house or hostel with a floor area of less than 300 square meters. Generally, tenants in modern day 1B rooming houses have their own bedroom with an ensuite, while other facilities like full kitchens, dining rooms, living areas and laundries are in common areas. Now, no matter what category, rooming houses must be registered with the local council, and both types have criteria around fire alarms and other safety standards. In Victoria, building a Class 1B rooming house does not require a planning permit. It can be done instead with a building permit, as long as the land is zoned general residential. Most rooming houses have the appearance of a standard suburban house from the outside. It's the floor plan that differs, with up to 9 private rooms. The big attraction for investors is, of course, the higher returns and the prospect of being genuinely in a position of positive cash flow. Rooming houses can deliver significantly higher rental returns than standard residential properties. With multiple individual rooms rented out separately, the combined rental income typically exceeds the amount that could be earned from leasing the property as a single entity. This makes rooming houses an attractive option for investors seeking to maximize cash flow and achieve better returns on investment. And some operators report returns of up to 12%. Analysis by investment advisory Savills says investors have the potential to achieve 3 or 4 times higher yields than the local area's typical yield for a house or unit. And multiple tenancies also help mitigate the risk of lost income if the property has vacancies. There are also potentially tax benefits. In Victoria, if you meet the prescribed criteria, owners of rooming houses can apply for a land tax exemption through the State Revenue Office. At the same time, there are some additional costs for rooming house investors that do not apply to typical individual investment properties. There are no separate water or electricity meter. The owner has to pay those costs. Owners also need to clean the common areas, and building, landlord and contents insurance are required as there are furnishings in common areas. But the returns can be attractive. Average rooming house rents begin at around $250 per tenant per week, although many are higher depending on the location, the size of the room and the amenities offered. At a base rate of $250 per week per tenant in a 6-bedroom boarding house, which costs say $1 million, there's a weekly rental return of $1,500 per week, which delivers a yield close to 8%. And with a 9-room property, that would be almost 12%. Research by the Australian Housing and Investment Research Institute over the past 10 years has identified an increase in demand for rooming houses and also a change in the type of people living in rooming houses. Students, travellers and workers in key industries have been seeking out rooming houses for affordable dwellings which offer a higher level of privacy than typical share houses. Tenant demand picked up pace during the pandemic when rents in individual houses and apartments soared. Analysis by CNN Accountants says that the chronic housing shortage and demand for this style of property in Australia mean investors are now considering rooming houses as a solid investment opportunity. And it says in its report, these purpose-built properties provide affordable long-term housing while delivering significantly higher yields than traditional residential properties. Like all investment properties, rooming houses are only a good option if they're in the right location. Areas with high student populations and low-income workers, low vacancy rates, and a shortage of affordable rentals are top of the list. Employment hubs such as hospitals, universities, and central business districts are important, as is access to public transport and amenities including shopping centres and supermarkets. Overall, rooming houses are set to become a growing trend in the residential real estate investment landscape. And if investors get it right, they can be a form of property investment that pays its own way and provides positive cash flow.
Thanks, Terry, for the video. Let's look at the numbers behind this. National vacancy rates are sitting at just 1.2%, which is incredibly tight. It means tenants are competing for very limited options. In just the past 2 years, rents have surged more than 9 and 17%, particularly in places like Melbourne and Adelaide. For many renters, affordability has just simply disappeared. We're also seeing a long-term structural shift in household makeups. Right now, around 26% of Australian households are single-person households, and that's expected to rise to 28% in 2041. Put simply, demand for smaller, affordable living spaces is only going to grow. And investors who position themselves now in front of this trend stand to benefit the most. Now let's talk about the part investors always want to know, returns. Reiterating what Terry Ryder said on the video, if you put your money into a standard house, you'll usually see a yield between 3.5% and 5%. A dual occupancy might give you 5 to 6.5%, but with rooming houses, the numbers are much stronger. A Class 1A can deliver 6 to 7.5%, and Class 1B properties often achieve 8 to 12%. Now that's double the return of a standard house, and because you've got multiple tenants in one property, the cash flow is more resilient. Even if one tenant moves out, the income keeps coming in from the others. Why focus on Victoria, particularly Melbourne? First, population growth. Melbourne is growing faster than any other capital city, with migration driving huge demand for housing. Second, infrastructure. The state has committed $77 billion in the next 4 years for projects like Metro Tunnel, the suburban rail loop, and the Northeast Link. These projects are going to transform accessibility and livability. Third, affordability. Believe it or not, Melbourne is now cheaper than Brisbane. You can still buy 3 to 4 bedroom homes under 600,000. For a capital city like Melbourne's size and growth, that's extraordinary. Put together, these factors make Melbourne a market with strong upside and great entry points for investors. Now, let's not forget about regional Victoria. The state government is investing heavily into healthcare infrastructure in cities like Ballarat, Bendigo, and Geelong. We're talking about multi-$100 million hospital redevelopments and new facilities. These projects don't just build hospitals, they bring jobs, they attract professionals, and they boost demand for rental accommodation in those cities. So while Melbourne is the clear growth engine, regional centres offer incredible opportunities for rooming houses as well, backed by long-term government investment. All of this information and more is found in our exclusive report on rooming houses in Victoria, independently produced by Terry Ryder and the Hotspotting team. Now, to sum it up, Victoria's housing shortage is driving strong demand for affordable rentals, and rooming houses are stepping up to meet that need while delivering solid, reliable returns for investors. With Melbourne's growth, major infrastructure investment, and exciting opportunities across regional Victoria, there's never been a better time to get involved. If you'd like a copy of Terry Ryder's Hotspotting report or want to explore current rooming house projects, please get in touch by email or book a discovery call for me for a chat. An email will be sent to everyone after the webinar with the contact details. And together with our network of specialist suppliers offering rooming houses, options available now, will help you find tomorrow's hot property today. Thanks very much for joining.